Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed and today I'm going to be sharing some insightful informations. I'm going to be giving you some critical steps, challenges, and some of the problems I encounter and how I was able to figure out those challenges while working on my Arduino project. So one of the first challenges that I had is how I could connect the hardware, because one of the very essential part is having to ensure that you have those hardware connected to each other in the right proportion. If not so, you're going to be having some challenges while even running the Arduino. And some of the challenges that I face is how I could connect the DHT11, which is this, how I could connect those wire from the microcontroller and with the DHT11. So the wires I used wasn't working at first, so I had to change the wire to ensure that the wire works, and I was able to fix that. Secondly, the challenges I face is that how I could be able to connect the right wire into the right port, because if you look at the hardware, we have the power analog and we have the digital as well. So you need to ensure that you connect the wire to the right port. So for we to do that, one of the first things that we need to do is that you take the first two wire, you have to connect it to the first two lines of the DHT11. And the secondly, what we need to do is that the first wire has to go into the 5V and the second wire has to go into the GND. And then the next wire that we have, which is beneath those two front wire, so we need to ensure that we connect it to the digital port, which is the port 7. If not so, it's not going to work. So that is the first challenge that I faced. So I had to try to read some documentation on Arduino for me to be able to ensure I have this setup. So this is one of the first challenges that I faced, because if you did not connect this wire correctly, sometimes it's going to run, but the challenge you're going to face is that it's not going to give you the right humidity and temperature, and which is a big problem. So you need to ensure you connect this quite right for you to be able to ensure you have the right data coming from Arduino, because the DHT11 is the one reading the temperature and the humidity, and if you don't have those connections set up very well, you're going to have an error, or you're going to have the wrong data. So you need to ensure you're able to have this set up quite right. And this is one of the challenges I face, right? So after I was able to read some documentation, it really helped me, right? Because I was able to figure out how I can connect those wire, and how I can connect those integration of the DHT11 and the hardware, so to ensure everything's synchronized, and I was able to test and it works. So the second challenge that I faced is on the Arduino part. So on the Arduino part, I was trying to install the right libraries, and so if you are working with DHT11, you need to ensure that you install the DHT package, which is the DHT11. If not so, it's not going to work. So because we have two DHT, we have the DHT11 and we have the DHT22. So you need to ensure that you have the right sensor that you are using. So for mine, I'm using DHT11, and that's why I was able to install the DHT11 library for my Arduino for able to run successfully. If not so, it's not going to work. So some of the another challenge that I face is that I was trying to install the wrong DHT. So, but I was able to figure out that by reading some documentation on Arduino. So I was able to dictate that I need to restore the DHT11 library for me to work, because I'm using the DHT11 sensors, and I had to ensure that I installed the DHT11 library on Arduino to work. So that's one of the challenges that I faced. And after I was able to do this, I was able to write the code on my Arduino, and I was able to do the integration, and everything works. Because first of all, I was getting the wrong data, and this was due to the connection. I was placing the wire to the wrong connection board. So if you do that, you're going to have an error. So for you to ensure that you have the right connection set up, try to read some documentation. The documentation is going to help you ensure that you have those set up connected to the right port. If not so, you're going to have an error. So after I did that, and ensure you do test your code, ensure your code tech run fine ensure you don't have any error, because the error you have on your Arduino, there is going to tell on why you are able to send your data to your Python. So you need to ensure that your Arduino works fine. You need to ensure the setup is correct. You need to ensure your data is accurate. You need to ensure your Python, you need to ensure your C++ coding programming language on your Arduino works fine. And another thing that you need to ensure you need to ensure the right port that you are using. Since you are using the Arduino Mega, so you need to ensure that you connect to the 2560 ports, and you need to ensure you know what com you're using. I'm using com3. So yours, you need to know the com that you are using, because if not so, you're going to have an error. And why that error is going to pop up is when you are dealing with your Python code. So the second challenge that I face is that at first my text to speech wasn't running because of the fact that some of the libraries I'm using, so some library like py audio is not working. And the reason why it's not working is that it's not really compatible with the Visual Studio I'm using. So you need to ensure that you have the right Visual Studio version that you're using to ensure you have an error. So for my Visual Studio code, I had to go low. I have to download the one of the lower version for my Python code to work appropriately and to work fine on my Visual Studio code. And one of the challenges I face is that the library I'm using for the text to speech, so I had to source for other libraries to use, because for mine I'm using the PYTTX3 library, which is the text to speech. And one of the challenges that you might encounter is that when you are doing the serial communication, so if you don't know the right port to use, it's gonna have an error. For me, I'm using the COM3. So the serial port, you need to know that, and where you can know that is on Arduino. So when you go to your Arduino and you click on the Arduino Mega, so you're going to see the comp or the port that your computer is using, and then you need to know what port to use, so that the port that your computer is connected to will determine the serial communication that your Python is going to read from. If not so, you're going to have an error. And then, so another challenge that I face is when I'm having to structure my code, because I make my Python code in a way that user can make selection of voices. So you can select either one or two voices, and then you can read from the voice as well. So one of the challenges is that having to have a multiple choice of option of the voice you want to read those data from. So I have some challenges there, which I was able to fix by reading some documentation and ensuring that my code aligns, right? And one of the beautiful parts of my project is that I have a data dreamer, which is from Excel, where I constructed a chart where you can see how the data coming from Arduino to read the temperature and humidity goes rise and fall. So you see all of those things in real time, and that's having to do with the visualization of my project. So I did some of the visualization by using Excel. So Excel package has data dreamer where you can use when you can connect to Arduino, and then when you run your data from Arduino, so it sends those data to Excel, and from Excel you can construct a chart where you see in real time how the humidity and the temperature goes from up to down. So you can see all of those things, so which are one of the beautiful parts of my project which I have. So aside from that, so I some of the issues I have is just having to fix some bugs, because sometimes you have some bugs and those bugs come from indentation. So if you don't have the proper indentation on your code base, it's going to have an error. So then I was able to do that is I was able to debug. So you need to also learn how to debug, because this has to do with writing some codes. Sometimes your hardware might be fine, while your programming language, your coding structure might be wrong, and which is one of the reasons why you might have some challenges or issues. So you need to ensure that you have your code properly indented. So you need to have a right code of structure. You need to write your code in a very structured way, because indentation too is another key factor. And if you don't know how to check where you have a problem, you can debug. Just put a breakpoint on your code and then run it, and then you could easily debug where those issue is, and you can quickly fix that. So aside from that, yeah, I do not have other challenges or issues. Or one of the critical step, and one of the challenge, one of the things that I would just recommend for any individual having to work on Arduino is, first of all, you need to know what you're working on. You need to know what problem you want to solve. You need to know what you want to do. Secondly, that I want to encourage every individual working on Arduino is that try to ensure that your hardware part is one of the most critical parts. You need to ensure you are able to connect your hardware properly, because if you don't have your hardware properly connected, it might work, but it might be giving you some wrong information or wrong data. So you don't want to encounter that. Ensure you have your connection set up. And one of the things that you want to do is that go online and raise some documentation on Arduino. It's going to help you a lot to set up your hardware, so that you're not gonna have so many issues, because sometimes the problem is the hardware, why your data is not giving the right value. So you need to ensure that you have your hardware properly set up. If your hardware is properly set up, you want to ensure that you test first on the Arduino. Test end to end to ensure everything works fine on the Arduino. So if everything works fine and you want to transfer your data to for Python, maybe voice recognition or text to speech, then you need to ensure that you are connecting to the right port. Check your port under your Arduino to know how the serial communication works. If not so, it's not gonna work. And also you need to ensure that you know the libraries to install. Ensure you know the libraries to install, because each library gives its own functionality on how your code will work. Ensure you know the libraries to install, and when you have the right library to install, also ensure that you have your code properly structured. You need to ensure that your indentation is properly structured. You need to ensure that you don't have any wrong placement of code. And if you have some misinterpretation of code, so also you need to learn how to debug your code too. Set a breakpoint, click on debug, and then it's going to debug that. So when you move step by step to your code by debugging is going to tell you where the error is, and you can easily fix that. So these are ways on how you can work on Arduino, set up your Arduino, and do some code instruction on Arduino. And with this, I believe you're going to find on that. Thank you so much, everyone.